Hi, Alan Kim-Young-Ato, doing my assignment 2, Governance Competence Self-Reflection. Now, this reflection challenged me. It challenged me to rethink governance not simply as oversight and accountability, but as stewardship, trust, and leadership under uncertainty. To evaluate my governance readiness, I examined 2 leaders that I admire, Lee Kuan Yew and Sir John Key. Although they led very differently, both demonstrate governance capabilities that shaped my understanding of effective leadership and highlighted important gaps in my own development. So for Lee Kuan Yew, he impressed me through his extraordinary strategic vision and his institutional discipline. He viewed education, infrastructure, economic development, and social cohesion as interconnected systems and consistently prioritised long-term national outcomes over short-term popularity. However, his highly centralised approach also highlights a governance risk. While command and control leadership can create clarity and execution, it can also limit participation, challenge, and adaptive thinking. Sir John Key represents almost the opposite model. What I admire most is his ability to maintain public confidence during uncertainty. His calm communication, stakeholder focus, and pragmatic decision-making help build trust and legitimacy during periods such as the global financial crisis and the Christchurch earthquakes. At the same time, there is a risk that adaptability and popularity can become overly transactional if difficult issues are avoided. For me, effective governance requires both approaches: Lee Kuan Yew's strategic discipline and John Key's emotional steadiness and stakeholder awareness. So for my own self-assessment, reflecting on these leaders forced me to examine my own leadership identity. I rated my strategic thinking at 8.5 out of 10, and my operational execution capability at 9 out of 10. Throughout my career, I have been comfortable navigating complexity, creating structure, and delivering results under pressure. However, governance requires different capabilities from operational leadership. I rated my adaptive leadership and emotional restraint at about 6 out of 10, and my overall governance maturity at 6.5 out of 10. The most significant insight from this reflection was recognizing that restoring order quickly is not always the same as leading well. Early in my career, I often believed leadership meant creating certainty, alignment, and direction as quickly as possible. Now, looking back, there were times when my urgency to solve problems unintentionally reduced participation and dialogue for others. People experienced decisiveness, but they didn't always feel heard. And that is an uncomfortable admission, because I have always taken pride in being dependable under pressure. However, my MBA journey has helped me recognise that governance requires restraint as much as action. Sometimes leaders need to create space for listening, challenge, and uncertainty, rather than immediately moving to solution. So I was able to come up with a development plan to strengthen my governance capability. I've developed a practical 12-month plan. Firstly, I intend to attend governance forums and seek board exposure through observer roles and establish mentoring conversations with experienced governance practitioners. Second, I will improve my adaptive leadership by deliberately creating challenge sessions during strategic discussions, undertaking development and emotional intelligence, and maintaining a reflective journal to monitor how urgency influences my behaviour. And third, I intend to strengthen stakeholder communication through structured feedback and by becoming more comfortable acknowledging uncertainty rather than defaulting to my immediate reassurance. My goal is not to become less decisive. My goal is to become more balanced. I want to combine strategic thinking and accountability with greater adaptability, emotional awareness, and stakeholder engagement. This reflection reinforced that governance is not simply about authority or decision making. Lee Kuan Yew demonstrated the value of strategic vision and institutional discipline. John Key demonstrated the importance of trust, adaptability, and emotional steadiness. Together, they illustrate that effective governance requires both strength and restraint. The most important lesson I take from this assignment is that governance failure rarely begins with bad intentions. More often, it begins when leaders become so focused on achieving outcomes that they lose sight of how those outcomes are experienced by others. My ongoing challenge is to continue to evolve from an operational executive mindset to one of stewardship, reflection, and long-term governance responsibility. Thank you.